Welcome back to ABC General Hospital. Spoilers channel. Today we will learn about the explosive developments rocking Port Charles on Tuesday, November th. As tensions simmer in the wake of Drew Kane's shocking shooting, the town's most prominent figures find themselves entangled in a web of secrets, risky schemes, and heartfelt confessions that could shatter alliances forever. At General Hospital, the atmosphere grows thick with suspicion as Felicia Scorpio wastes no time confronting Portia Robinson in a tense interrogation about the fateful night of the attack. Felicia, ever the shrewd investigator, with her years of experience unraveling mysteries, probes deeply, her questions laced with subtle accusations that leave Portia visibly unsettled. Joining this charged exchange is Isaiah Gainen, the enigmatic newcomer whose calm demeanor hides a sharp intellect. He might subtly urge Portia to reveal her true whereabouts that evening, potentially steering the conversation toward a full admission of her alibi. In a quieter moment away from prying eyes, Isaiah pulls Portia aside in a dimly lit hospital corridor, his voice low and concerned as he suggests they approach the authorities together to clear the air and prevent further misunderstandings. Yet Portia, grappling with her own whirlwind of emotions, firmly rejects the notion, her eyes flashing with determination. She's not ready to drag her personal life into the spotlight, especially since she hasn't even confided in her husband, Curtis Ashford, about the shocking possibility that Isaiah could be the father of the child she's secretly carrying. This pregnancy discovered amid the chaos of recent events adds layers of complexity to Portia's dilemma, as revealing her night with Isaiah might unravel her marriage and expose vulnerabilities she can't afford right now. Isaiah being the perceptive doctor, he starts piecing together clues from Portia's evasive responses and subtle physical changes, realizing the timeline aligns all too neatly with their intimate encounter. It's only a matter of time before he confronts her directly, forcing a reckoning that could redefine their budding connection. Ultimately, Portia's impending confession promises to be a pivotal moment. Whether it's a partial truth to Felicia about her movements, or a vulnerable disclosure to Isaiah about the baby, this revelation will ripple through the hospital's corridors, testing loyalties and igniting fresh suspicions among the staff. Meanwhile, across town, Harrison Chase launches a daring and potentially disastrous strategy that sends shockwaves through his inner circle, beginning with some unnerving revelations for Brooklyn Quarter man Chase, driven by his unyielding sense of justice and perhaps a touch of personal vendetta, outlines his bold maneuver in hushed tones, emphasizing the high stakes involved in exposing hidden truths about Willow Campos' predicament. Brooklyn, who has her own tangled history with Chase, absorbs these details with growing alarm, her mind racing through the possible fallout that could endanger not just their reputations, but their safety in Port Charles' unforgiving social landscape. Later, she seeks out Dante Falconer in a discreet meeting spot, extracting a solemn vow of confidentiality before unloading the bombshell details of Chase's fixation on securing Willow's release at any cost. This obsession, Brooklyn explains, borders on recklessness as Chase's plan hints at orchestrating Michael's professional and personal ruin through calculated leaks and alliances that could backfire spectacularly. Dante, the level-headed detective with a knack for navigating moral gray areas, listens intently, his brow furrowing as he contemplates the ethical tightrope Chase is walking. This news plants seeds of worry in Danny's mind, prompting him to weigh intervening quietly or letting the scheme unfold, all while considering how it might intersect with his own investigations into the shooting. Brooklyn's warning underscores a deeper theme in Port Charles. The blurred lines between loyalty and obsession, where one person's quest for justice might inadvertently harm those closest to them, setting the stage for interpersonal conflicts that could fracture longtime friendships. Over at Sonny Corinthos' sprawling estate, a father-son conversation turns poignant as Sonny probes Michael about the looming shadow of Willow's trial. Their words, heavy with the weight of family legacy and impending loss. Michael, ever the pragmatic heir to the current's empire, voices a grim forecast that Willow's conviction seems all but certain by the holiday season, painting a bleak picture of courtroom battles and unyielding evidence that could strip her away from their shared life. Sonny, drawing from his vast network of underworld insights and protective instincts, counters with a sly insinuation that fresh leads might emerge to shift the narrative. His eyes narrowing as he alludes to an overlooked suspect lurking in the shadows when Michael presses for specifics. Sonny reveals his subtle maneuvering, encouraging Alexis Davis to read her scrutiny toward Portia Robinson as a diversionary tactic, a move designed to buy time and sow doubt among prosecutors. Michael bristles at the idea, highlighting the collateral damage to Curtis Ashford's family and the ethical quandaries of implicating innocents in their defense. Yet Sonny remains steadfast, arguing that in Port Charles, survival demands bold plays that protect one's own above all else. This exchange not only exposes the generational rift in their approaches to power and justice, but also delves into Sonny's evolving role as a mentor, reminding Michael that true strength lies in anticipating betrayals and striking first, even if it means navigating morally ambiguous waters. Elsewhere, Nina Reeves experiences a deceptive twist she initially welcomes as a stroke of fortune, only for it to unravel into a web of misplaced trust and escalating rivalries. Believing she secured an ally in Justinda Bracken, Nina envisions a seamless takedown of Michael's defenses, with Justinda poised to dismantle his alibi and expose cracks in his story during crucial interrogations. Eager to capitalize, Nina confides in Drew Kane over a tense coffee at the Metro Court, speculating wildly that Michael might resort to his ruthless side to neutralize Justinda if she wavers, imagining scenarios where old alliances fracture under pressure. However, Justinda's loyalty has solidified toward Michael in unexpected ways, fueled by shared secrets and the thrill of their fabricated romance, which they parade publicly through staged outings and affectionate gestures that fool even the most skeptical onlookers. As this pretense deepens, subtle sparks of genuine attraction flicker between Michael and Justinda's stolen glances during late-night strategy sessions. Moments of vulnerability that blur the lines between act and reality, hinting at a passionate entanglement that could complicate their larger schemes. This evolving dynamic adds a layer of romantic intrigue to the procedural Drama, exploring how deception in port. Charles often blossoms into authentic. Emotion, forcing characters to confront whether their hearts will betray their ambitions. In a bid to bolster Willow's defense from behind bars, Alexis Davis makes a clandestine visit to Pentville, armed with strategic insights that could pivot the entire case in surprising directions. Willow, isolated yet resilient, absorbs Alex's updates with a mix of hope and apprehension, learning of the attorney's bold pivot to implicate Portia as an alternate suspect. A gambit that introduces reasonable doubt through timelines and motives previously overlooked. This revelation forces Willow to grapple with the broader implications, pondering how implicating another prominent figure might humanize her own narrative while risking a cascade of retaliatory accusations within the tight-knit community. Alexis, channeling her prosecutorial prowess, outlines the courtroom theatrics ahead, emphasizing how this added layer could sway jurors weary of the establishment's biases, ultimately transforming Willow's trial from a foregone conclusion into a riveting battle of wits. Finally, as the mayoral debate grips Port Charles with political fervor, Giovanni, Joe Pallery and Emma Scorpio Drake sees the distraction as their perfect cover for a high-stakes infiltration. Whispering in the shadows of the debate venue, they synchronize their plan, convinced the ensuing chaos will mask their movements and provide the ideal window to access restricted areas. If young Charlotte Casadini delivers on her covert mission to pill for the essential key fob, sneaking through back channels with the cunning she's inherited from her storied lineage, Gemma and Jill will slip into the fortified lab undetected, their hearts pounding with the thrill of forbidden discovery. Next, we will learn about the brewing storm of suspicion surrounding Portia Robinson's shaky alibi in the Drew Kane shooting scandal, as Sonny Corinthos stirs the pot in Alexis Davis's office. Sonny Corinthos, the ever-calculating kingpin of Port Charles, didn't just drop by Alexis Davis's office on a whim. He arrived with a calculated bombshell that could unravel Portia's carefully constructed facade. Picture this. Sonny, with his street-smart instincts honed from years of navigating the underworld, lays out the details of Portia's mysteriously absent alibi for the fateful night Drew Kane was gunned down in cold blood. This revelation hits harder because Portia's motives run deeper than the surface level grudges many harbor against Drew. Hers stem from a tangled web of personal betrayals and hidden resentments that few in town have even glimpsed. Whispers among the elite circles suggest Portia's anger traces back to Drew's ruthless corporate maneuvers at Aurora Media, where he allegedly pushed her into a corner during a heated boardroom clash, threatening her professional reputation and family stability. Curtis Ashford, her devoted partner, who's paused his own ambitions to champion her cause, is itching for this probe to conclude so he can reclaim his budding romance with Jordan Ashford, the no-nonsense commissioner whose sharp intellect once complemented his own investigative prowess. Driven by this personal stake, Curtis will likely dissect Alexis's emerging theory that Portia might be the shadowy figure behind the trigger to shield Willow 8 from the mounting legal pressures. My prediction, Curtis's scrutiny will zero in on Michael Corinth's alibi, which crumbles under even mild examination. potentially exposing fractures in the Quartermain Corinthos alliance that have simmered since the ELQ takeover wars. This twist not only heightens the drama, but underscores how fragile loyalties can shatter when secrets spill into the open, leaving viewers on the edge of their seats wondering if Portia's double life will cost her everything. Portia's precarious position unravels. Alexis Davis, the sharp-tongued attorney who's no stranger to the moral gray areas of Port Charles justice, initially resisted diving into Sonny's unsolicited intel, preferring to steer clear of his orbit of influence. Yet, the allure of a credible lead proved irresistible, especially since Sonny approached her without the usual strings attached, no bribes, no veiled threats, just a nugget of information primed to ignite the courtroom fireworks. Fans of the show will recall how such tips from Sonny have historically toppled empires like the Time Is Whisper campaign dismantled the drone crime syndicate's remnants. 4. Portia, however, this spells impending doom as she battles to conceal her steamy entanglement with Isaiah Guinan, the enigmatic newcomer whose charm and medical expertise first drew her in during a late-night shift at General Hospital. Isaiah, with his background as a traveling surgeon from Atlanta's underbelly, brings a dangerous allure that contrasts sharply with Curtis's steady reliability. But their clandestine rendezvous on the night of the shooting, perhaps a passionate escape to a secluded cabin overlooking the harbor, now threatens to torpedo her marriage. Disclosing her whereabouts to the authorities would not only expose this affair, but could ignite Curtis's jealousy, prompting him to bolt straight to a divorce attorney faster than a getaway car in one of Sonny's heists. Imagine the fallout. Curtis, feeling the sting of betrayal akin to his past heartbreaks with Jordan, might seek solace in rekindling old flames, while Portia grapples with the choice between truth and deception if she opts for silence, fabricating a solitary evening at home with nothing but a glass of wine and regrets. It could backfire spectacularly, painting her as the prime suspect in a narrative spun by Alexis to exonerate Willow. This internal conflict adds layers to Portia's character, transforming her from the poised chief of staff into a woman teetering on the brink of self-destruct, forcing audiences to question whether her ambition will be her ultimate downfall. Curtis emerges as the relentless sleuth, as Portia doubles down on her vague account of a quiet night in the cracks in her story widen, inviting Curtis Ashford's razor-sharp instincts to take center stage. Curtis, ever the protector, might initially leap to the worst assumption that Drew Kane had confided in Alexis about Portia's seething vendetta, perhaps fueled by Drew's rumored knowledge of her ethical lapses at the hospital, like bending protocols to favor certain patients during a staffing crisis. A heated confrontation could ensue with Curtis demanding answers in their cozy water for an apartment, the tension thick enough to rival the fog rolling off the docks, but cooler heads might prevail when Portia counters with logic. Why would Drew broadcast his blackmail scheme, especially if it involved leveraging her affair for leverage in a corporate espionage plot against ELQ? Instead, she could definitely shift suspicion towards Sonny, recounting how he barged into Alexis's office mid-conversation, his presence as intrusive as his reputation. This redirection action might plant seeds of doubt in Curtis's mind, leading him to ponder if Sonny's tip was a preemptive strike to derail Alexis's pursuit of Michael. Corinthos, aligning with Drew's dying wish to shield his son from scrutiny. Delving deeper, Curtis could uncover how Sonny's loyalty to the Kane family runs deep, rooted in shared battles against the Casadinis, making his interference a calculated move to preserve the fragile peace. Such revelations would not only complicate the investigation, but highlight the intricate power dynamics in Port Charles, where every alliance hides a potential betrayal, keeping the suspense dialed up for episode after gripping episode, the private investigator's shadowy pursuit. In a stroke of ironic fortune for Portia, her estranged husband's past as a seasoned private eye equips him with the tools to unravel the night's mysteries without missing a beat. Curtis, dusting off his old surveillance kit from the days when he tailed suspects through the dimly lit back alleys of Harlem before settling in Port Charles, could launch a covert operation to verify timelines and alibis. As he pores over Alexis's motives, perhaps driven by her own grudges against the Robinson family from a long-forgotten custody battle, he risks overlooking the elephant in the room: Portia's own evasions. Unable to pin down her location through phone records or witness statements, Curtis might pivot to dismantling Michael's defense and listing his PI contacts to dig into Justinda Bracken's background. Justinda, the fiery bartender with a history of run-ins with the law from her days in New York speakeasies, could crack under pressure if Curtis unears her involvement in a minor fraud scheme, trading her testimony for immunity. Visualize Michael's shock as his carefully curated alibi evaporates, his expression morphing from smug confidence to wide-eyed panic in the glow of a late night interrogation room. This maneuver wouldn't just threaten Michael's freedom, but ripple through the Current's empire, potentially straining his already tense relationship with Sonny over Willow's safety. Portia's temporary reprieve comes at a cost as Curtis's dog pursuit peels back layers of deceit, exposing how one night's shadows can eclipse lifetimes of trust. In the end, this chapter of General Hospital promises twists that redefine friendships and fuel endless speculation among fans, proving once again why Port Charles remains the epicenter of daytime drama. Next, we will learn about the deepening mysteries surrounding Britt Westburn's dangerous alliances and the shadows they cast over her fragile existence in Port Charles. Britt Westburn's entangled connections to enigmatic and morally dubious characters such as the elusive Jen Sidwell and the enigmatic Professor Henry Hank Dalton are unraveling in ways that promise explosive revelations for the entire town. Picture this: when the ever-reliable Jason Morgan swooped in to extract her from the opulent yet treacherous confines of the Five Poppies Hotel in Croatia, he stepped into a web of intrigue far more tangled than he could have anticipated. Britt, ever the master of guarded secrets, chose silence over confession, a stark departure from their once open dynamic where vulnerabilities were shared freely under moonlit skies. Heartbreak lingers like a persistent fog. Jason's affections had ultimately veered toward Carly, leaving Brittmore not once, but twice. First, through emotional abandonment, and then through the fabricated veil of his death that shattered her world anew. Now, as these shadowy ties surface, Britt clams up tighter than a vault, refusing to disclose the full extent of her dealings with Sidwell and Dalton, or whether her pursuit of their experimental treatments is solely to tame the relentless advance of her symptoms. Whispers among fans speculate if deeper machinations lurk beneath the surface. Perhaps manipulations Britt herself hasn't yet pierced. Could these men be leveraging her desperation for their own clandestine agendas? Pulling strings in a high-stakes game of medical espionage that blurs the line between savior and saboteur. This layer of uncertainty not only heightens the drama, but invites viewers to question every glance and evasion Britt makes, turning her storyline into a riveting psychological thriller within the soap's bustling narrative. The catalyst, a fateful diagnosis. Delving into the origins, the spring of marked a pivotal chapter where romance blossomed unexpectedly between Britt and Jason, captivating audiences who yearned for a softer side to the stoic enforcer. Jason, scarred by the abrupt end to his partnership with Samuel and the unfulfilled sparks with Carly Corinthos, seemed poised for a tender redemption arc that fans embraced with open arms. Their whirlwind escape, evading authorities across the Canadian border, forged an intimate bond amid safe houses that doubled as hideouts, rustic cabins shrouded in pine forests where late-night conversations peeled back layers of guarded hearts. Yet, this budding love hit a devastating snag when Britt, during a moment of raw honesty in a dimly lit motel room, revealed her suspicions of early-onset Huntington's disease. The same cruel affliction that had ravaged her father, Caesar Faison, turning a brilliant mind into a shadow of its former self. For years, speculation has swirled like a storm cloud. Was this self-diagnosis accurate? Or could external forces have tampered with her health? Theories abound, from insidious poisoning by a rival seeking to weaken her resolve to a botched medical evaluation influenced by outdated equipment in a remote clinic. The fugitive lifestyle they led adds credibility to the diagnoses' legitimacy. With law enforcement hot on their trail, orchestrating a falsified result would require impeccable timing and insider access, both of which seem improbable. Given their nomadic path, Britt's impulsive decision to seek testing in an unfamiliar foreign lab, far from prying eyes in Port Charles, further solidifies the authenticity. How could anyone predict or intercept such a spontaneous quest for truth? This foundational event not only tested their relationship, but set the stage for Britt's ongoing battle. A poignant reminder of how personal vulnerabilities can ignite chain reactions of suspicion and survival instincts in the unforgiving world of General Hospital. Veiled truths, the perils of concealment. Even with Huntington's etched into her medical reality, Britt's condition remains a closely guarded enigma, rarely surfacing in the town's gossip mills despite its looming presence. She confided in her formidable mother, Lissel Oric, about staging her own demise, a desperate ploy born from the acceptance that her disease would inevitably claim her, sparing loved ones the spectacle of her decline. To the outside world, friends, family, and even wary allies like Jason, Britt is still presumed to be in the iron grip of this progressive nightmare destined to erode Her vitality piece by piece. The baffling survival of her supposed final moments raises eyebrows. How did she defy death in Liesel's embrace? Or neutralize the lethal snake venom from Heather Weber's infamous poison hook? Attacks that felled so many others. Brit hoards these survival tales like precious heirlooms, possibly to shield her reputation from further scrutiny in a town rife with judgment, or more crucially to protect her access to the experimental regimen Sidwell provides. Siring of hope that suppressed tremors, cognitive fog, and the inexorable march of neurodegeneration. This secrecy weighs heavily on longtime viewers, particularly those touched by Huntington's in real life, where families grapple with the disease's unyielding grip without the luxury of fictional miracles. The portrayal of Brit's hidden resilience sparks debates on empathy versus escapism. While some applaud the soap's nod to medical innovation, others decry it as trivializing the raw anguish of actual patients, potentially alienating a segment of the audience invested in authentic representation. Ultimately, Brit's web of deceptions risks fracturing her closest bonds. Will the truth about her endurance and treatments drive a wedge between her and Jason, or force a reckoning with Liesel that exposes vulnerabilities neither anticipated? Shadows of dependency. Questioning the cure. At the heart of Brit's predicament lies the dubious promise of Jen Sidwell's so-called miracle drug, a pharmaceutical enigma that begs scrutiny amid her precarious alliances. Is this injectable elixir genuinely staving off Huntington's brutal symptoms, granting Brit's stolen moments of clarity and strength? Or does it serve as an insidious tool for control laced with elements that induce dependency or subtle manipulations? Fan theories proliferate, with some hoping fervently that the drug conceals a darker purpose, perhaps engineered withdrawals that mimic disease flares, keeping Brit tethered to Sidwell's influence like a puppet on invisible strings, or even hallucinogenic side effects that cloud her judgment during critical decisions in Port Charles. Yet, evidence leans against such conspiracies. As a seasoned doctor with access to state-of-the-art labs, Brit could dissect these vials under a microscope at any turn, cross-referencing chemical compositions against known Huntington suppressants, and noting precise correlations between doses and symptom relief. Her meticulous tracking, perhaps via a hidden journal of injection logs and daily health metrics, would expose any foul play, underscoring the heartbreaking probability that she is indeed battling a genuine affliction without miraculous reprieve. Still, if this drug represents a legitimate breakthrough, a tantalizing question emerges. Can Brit secure a sustainable supply without perpetual entanglement in Sidwell's shadowy network? Envision scenarios where she leverages her medical expertise to replicate the formula in a neutral lab, or brokers a deal with ethical researchers to sever ties, transforming her from victim to vanguard in a potential Huntington's revolution. Such developments could redefine her arc, blending tragedy with triumph and offering Port Charles and viewers a narrative of hope amid despair, while probing the ethical tightrope of experimental medicine in a world where cures often come with hidden costs.